Hi everybody, we are in chapter 6. We just came out of a beautiful chapter with the song of Deborah. We saw 40 years of peace, and then we get right back into the negative cycle that we spoke about. So chapter 6, starting with the sentence, then the Israelites did what was offensive to the Lord. This time he delivered them to the Midianites, together with Amalek and the Kedemites. Sean, what is the common denominator between these nations?
Unlike the story of Deborah, here the Israelites are not faced with an enemy who's a Canaanite, settled population living in city-states. The Midianites, Amalek, the children of Kedem are all nomadic peoples who, when the drought hits their wilderness areas, come into settled areas in search of food.
So that basically explains then why it's written here, every time when Israel was sowing in the hill country, just when the produce is ready, these nations come, and it's described like locusts coming down, innumerable numbers, and they completely raid the produce of Israel.
Yes, and they reduce Israel to misery, and then Israel needs a leader who will redeem them.
So that brings us to the town of Ophrah. God establishes a redeemer, and we find ourselves in the story of Gideon. Gideon doesn't want to do this. He basically says to the angel of God, my clan is the smallest of the tribe of Manasseh, and he says, I'm the youngest of my family. He doesn't want to do this. What do we learn from this, and is there a parallel?
Right. The story of Gideon is designed as an intentional parallel to the story of Moses. Moses refuses leadership, Gideon refuses leadership. Moses is called a redeemer, Gideon is called a redeemer. Moses, like Gideon, tries to train the Israelites in acknowledging God's sovereignty, and for that reason, Gideon begins his activity by destroying an altar for Baal and replacing it with an altar for God.
This is where we see a change of name as well. He is now called Yeru-Baal. Why?
After Gideon destroys the altar of Baal, the people of his town, Ophrah, come to his father and demand that he hand over Gideon to them for the terrible crime of destroying the altar of Baal. Gideon's father tells the people of Ophrah, why are you fighting for Baal? Let Baal, if he's a god, fight for himself. The Hebrew fight, Riv, gives Gideon his name. Let Baal fight for himself. Yeru-Baal, in English, Jerubbaal, let Baal fight for himself. After this incident, Gideon begins his career as leader of the Israelites, and the battles which he leads take place here, abutting the valley of Jezreel at the spring known as Ein Harod, the spring of Harod. Let's go see where the incident happens. In chapter 6, verse 33, we're told that all these innumerable Midianites, people of Amalek, and people of Kedem gather here in the valley of Jezreel, Emek Yisrael, the most fertile part of the land of Israel. Here they gather, and Gideon, we're told a few verses later, moves his army down towards the spring of Harod, which is just where the palm tree is ahead of us. Up ahead of us, we see the hill of Moreh, and the Canaanite army then moves to the other side of the hill of Moreh, and there on the other side of the hill of Moreh, Gideon has a very interesting encounter with the Canaanite army, which is designed to give him encouragement.
Gideon is set up against the odds. He is now against the Ein Mispar, the innumerable, and he needs to go into battle with them. So he asked for encouragement from God. He said to him, you have to give me a sign. And he puts out a woolen fleece, and he says, let this be a sign that if the dew saturates this fleece, I will know that that's a sign from you. God exactly does according to his request, but at that point he asks for another. Very humbly, respectfully, he goes to God and he says, I'm going to ask just one more time. This time he asked that it will be wet of the dew around, but that the fleece of wool will be dry. God again answers him in this sign, and now basically Gideon knows that he needs to go into battle.
And let's go see the spring of Harod, where he gathers his army for this battle. It's just down in the valley.